Hey, it's Johnny Jet. Welcome back to my podcast YouTube channel. If you're not a subscriber, please click the button below. Today, we have cyber expert Adam Levin, who is from the podcast. It is called What the Hack with Adam. You're one of the co-hosts, correct?
I am one of three.
Yeah. So it's What the Hack with Adam Levin. And he's also the author of the book Swiped. And he's the founder of the company Cyber Scout, which you just sold last year.
Yes, sir.
And so you've been around, you know all these scams that people are trying to pull on travelers. Do you have a specialty? Is it? I know you've talking about hotel or rental properties, but is it every kind of scam? What's your specialty?
No, kind of every kind of scam. Part of my background is also I was consumer affairs director for the state of New Jersey for 5 years, and you get introduced to every possible scam. And the interesting thing about scams is, people go, "What's new?" And a lot of the scams that we see are basically what's old.
Really?
Think of it as the same music, just different lyrics. So it will be wrapped up in whatever the issue of the day is, whether they're charity scams, rental scams. For instance, there was a program not too long ago that was supported by Airbnb where people were renting property in the Ukraine. They knew they couldn't go,
Right.
but it was a way that they could get money through Airbnb to people in the Ukraine much faster and get more immediate help. So, again, it has to do with the issues of the day, and scammers this is what they're really good at. And I think that one thing people always have to keep in mind, we all have day jobs. We're working, we're raising a family, we're running a business, we're involved in philanthropic or educational activities. That's our day job. But to a hacker, a scammer, an identity thief, we are their day job.
I see that. That's true. But and by the way, going back to that Ukraine scam, weren't a lot of these Airbnbs owned by big Russian companies? So people were donating to them. I ended up hearing, besides people pretending that they ran a Ukrainian Airbnb.
Well, there were, without question, the minute, anytime, anything that's good happens,
Right.
the forces of evil figure out a way to twist it to their benefit.
Yeah, it's really
Again,
amazing.
whether it's a charity or people trying to help people, or there's a unique opportunity to get great deals because of the way the economy is going. These kinds of things, scammers will swoop in, and remember, they're creative, sophisticated, and extremely persistent.
Right. So, what do you think is the most popular or most common scam that people do? And how about the one for New Jersey, the state of New Jersey? Which one do you find the most often?
Well, in those days, we really, scams were just everything from people offering incredible deals to presenting, for instance, a car deal, except they had only one car in stock that met those specifics. So people would rush in, and there was bait and switch.
Right.
So we had that. We had a lot of issues involving the credit reporting agencies in New Jersey. About one third of all complaints, and I was there in the late 70s, early 80s, believe it or not. It goes all the way back to there, were people having issues with credit reports and, trying to get help there. But New Jersey Consumer Affairs in those days was one of the largest and most effective agencies. We had 28 bureaus under us, from the Office of Consumer Protection through the professional boards, Bureau of Weights and Measures. One of the big scams is they'd be delivering your oil, except that your oil bill didn't match the number of gallons because they had adjusted the
Wow.
meters. Or you go to a gas station and the meters had been played with, or there were skimmers. I mean, skimmers have been around forever, where you would,
Put your credit
insert a
card in.
credit card, and they were giving or the information was being transmitted to the hackers.
You still have to worry about skimmers today.
Oh, oh, absolutely. Skimmers in gas pumps, skimmers in ATMs, also point of sale systems. Sometimes there are skimmers that are inserted in the middle of the night in retailers, and then they're collected the next night.
So,
So,
so do you just tap your card when you pay when you're at the gas station, or how do you like to do that?
well, I insert at the gas station, but I generally tap every place else.
And at the gas station, do you check to see if there's a skimmer in there? Can you physically see it?
You can, it's more and more difficult to see them, but it's kind of you mess with the front of the device and see if it moves, because sometimes they will put a skimmer over the actual slot for the card.
Right.
Um, but that's why, for instance, use the gas pumps closest to the office of the gas station.
That's a good one.
Just like when you are using an ATM machine, be very careful when you use an ATM machine that's out in the wild. Try to use ATM machines that are either attached to financial institutions or in the glass sections of the financial institution where you go in, because if they're not, there's a higher likelihood that they could be manipulated. Whereas in a bank or attached to a bank, there are cameras, that are mirrors, there are all sorts of things there. So
Right, I agree. And also, I avoid ATMs in hotels. If I land in a foreign country, I rarely use cash anyway. But if I was going to, I would use a legitimate bank. I wouldn't use the ATM at the airport necessarily. I mean, sometimes I do, but it has to be a notable bank.
yeah,
And
that's critical. It's got to be a reputable, well vetted, well reviewed bank. And
right. And then, but these days you have to watch out who's behind you. So obviously you always cover your PIN number when you're putting that in, but also, you don't want to take too much money out and let people see that you have it, because you hear about all these people following people home, even from casinos. They see that you win, you cash it in. There was someone, I think it actually happened in New Jersey. They either won in a Pennsylvania casino or a New Jersey one, and they drove across the border like 30 minutes, and they ended up going to the house, following them in just to get them for their $15,000, and they killed them.
Oh yeah, no, there is no. I mean, there were stories of people that had antennas that were tracking little RFID chips that would be as part of inventory control for clothing. And if someone spent a lot of money on really nice clothing, and they had an idea, they could see big bags of clothing and stuff, they would follow people to their cars. They might carjack them. They'd follow them home. California's had a lot of problems recently
Big time.
in the fancier neighborhoods where
Yep.
people are following people home. And when the gate opens for the car to come up the driveway, they sneak in through the open gate. And there's been a lot of issues.
It's sad. I mean, what's going on in the world is sad. And I mean, even yesterday or 2 days ago in the Bronx, I saw someone they purposely hit this person, and he was basically almost dying on the street, and they just rolled him over and stole his wallet. I mean, what are people doing these days? But
It's, the world we're in now. Unfortunately, a lot of things have turned a bit sour.
they have. And so when you're renting it, let's say you're renting a house. I
Sure.
assume you're not going to rent a house just on anything other than a reputable site like Airbnb or Verbo, HomeAway.
You should be. I mean, there's nothing more dangerous than responding to a pop-up ad that offers you the deal of the century, because as you and I both know, if it's too good to be true, 99% of the time, it isn't true.
Exactly. And you never pay with a gift card or a debit
No,
card, always a credit card.
always a credit card. Because remember, with a credit card, it's the bank's money. With a debit card or a gift card or cash, it's your money.
Right. So, I mean, because I hear about, even my readers are emailing me sometimes saying that, they found a deal on Craigslist or Facebook. And I was like, why would you buy or rent a house via there? You never do that. And now there's even a big scam where people are just showing up to people's houses because they're now pretending that they're just finding a really nice house. Maybe they're taking the pictures off of Redfin or another rental site or housing site or realtor site, and then just creating a fake vacation rental. So people are actually showing up with their bags because they legitimately thought they paid for it, which they did.
Yep. Yeah.
and they think that this house is theirs for the week or the weekend, and they start opening up the door, and the people are like, "What are you doing? I live
Yeah.
here."
Yeah. It's like, who are you?
So
Yes, this has happened to a number of people. Also, people will show up in an address and it's a vacant lot or a factory. So that's why it's very important, A, to use reputable sites, but B, also, to make some calls, talk to some real estate people in the area. Say, could you run a check? Look at Google, Maps, the God's eye view. Do that
right.
and zero in on the address, because you might find out that you're in an industrial section of town as opposed to residential.
Every time I've rented from Airbnb or Verbo, I always only rent from like their star, what do you call them? Their star renters. They all have different names, but people who have rented a lot, they haven't had any problems. That way, that you're going to have a great vacation and you're not going to run into issues because they've been vetted so many times.
No,
Or I
it's a
ask my friends who have they rented from, and then do the same way.
point of reference. It's always important to do a point of reference. And like we say with anything, whether it's downloading an app, whether it's going to a website, read reviews and pay particular attention to the negative reviews.
Right. But some of the reviews are fake, correct?
Yes.
And is there a way to, narrow that down to which ones aren't fake? I mean, are there tricks to that?
Well, it's if it sounds too glowing,
Right.
be careful. Just take your time and read various reviews. If they all seem to have the same theme, if they all seem to be written sort of the same way, also, do reverse lookups on some of the photographs of the real estate. And if it shows up in other places with different addresses, that might give you a clue that that's an issue.
Right. And do people have to worry about finding cameras in their vacation rental or even their hotel room?
Yeah. Yep. You have to worry about that. And, turn the lights off, turn a flashlight on if you see things flashing back at you, or they're images, that those kinds of things. That's kind of a tip off.
So
But
you turn the lights off. So
and
if there's
then
anything
just
flashing besides the smoke detector.
yeah, and I don't mean flashing so much. Well, flashing, yes, is one. Also, if you get some kind of reflection back, that could be an indication also that there's a camera there.
Okay.
And again, people, it's not unusual for people to have security cameras in their homes, just not in their bathrooms, bedrooms, and closets.
Right. So,
That's when you need to get a little nervous.
and is it okay for people to keep their cameras on when you rent a house?
Well, I don't think you should. I don't think there's an issue if you wish to have cameras on outside the house, but I do think there are issues if you have cameras on inside the house,
Gotcha. Right.
especially if your guests have no clue that the camera's on and they're wandering around in the altogether and they didn't realize that they become the star of their own reality show that they didn't sign up for.
Right. And they're getting tricky with these cameras. I mean, they actually can be in a fake outlet or a teddy bear or a smoke detector. I mean, you really have to look everywhere, correct?
No, you do. You do. I mean, it's better to be safe than sorry. You just never know.
Right. But it doesn't happen very often, so I don't want to scare people. But
Well, no, in well-reviewed, well-vetted properties, you don't really have that kind of an issue.
yeah, I don't even look when I use one of those. And there's also devices that I heard that you can buy on Amazon that will actually help detect if there's a camera in the room.
I believe you can. I'm not that familiar with them, but I think you're correct about that.
Gotcha. And how about connecting to Wi-Fi when you're traveling? Do you staying in a vacation rental or going to a cafe? Do you always use a VPN? What do you do?
Always use a VPN. Always use. I mean, that's not going to save you if you already have some kind of malware on your device, but at least it will keep you as hidden as possible when you're connecting to different websites, because you're operating through an encrypted tube. Just remember, with VPNs, use ones you pay for. Free ones sometimes are collecting your data, which you may not want.
Right. And speaking of, what was I going to talk about the
Well,
Wi-Fi?
yeah, connecting to Wi-Fi. First of all, make sure that if you're using the Wi-Fi from a particular home, and let's say it's legitimate, find out as much as you can about the security of the Wi-Fi, and then make sure that you're actually using the specific letters that make up the name of the Wi-Fi or the numbers in the Wi-Fi, because someone could easily uh, make just a slight derivation
Right.
of that. It could be a hacker, and you're connecting into that. I'll tell you a funny story. At Cyberscout, we used to have an event every year. It was called the Privacy Exchange. And one year we had one of the top election hackers in the world who came and did a presentation for us. Excuse me. And one of the things he did was set up a fake Wi-Fi network, and it was designated as "Do Not Connect. This
No.
is fake." And 37 people out of 400 actually connected to that network
Oh my gosh.
because they weren't paying attention. It was the first one that popped up, and they connected to it,
That's
and uh,
hilarious.
and he sort of used them as object lessons.
I thought you were going to say that he just changed like one letter and they all did it for the hotel or wherever you were doing it.
Well, yeah, that's also very important. Whenever you're at a conference, whenever you're at a hotel, make very sure that the system you're connecting into is the official system. And these days, they make it very clear when a system is not terribly secure. And I can't tell you how many times I've been thinking about connecting to a system, whether it's on an airplane or in a hotel, and it goes unsecure network. And then
I
you have
see.
to think twice. You don't have much of a choice in an airplane,
Right.
but you can you work with your mobile provider and create hotspots. It will be safer for you to do that through your mobile provider than it will to be connecting into insecure network.
Even when you're on the plane?
Not so much. You can't
Okay.
do it on a plane.
Okay. Because I've used a VPN, I think, before on a plane.
Yeah, you can do that.
Um,
But the other thing too is just remember, don't do anything sensitive when you're connecting to a network that's not secure, and especially if you're on notice that it's not secure. Yeah, I mean, you want to browse the internet, that's one thing.
right.
But if you're doing some kind of financial transaction, or you're getting into your email and you're getting into areas that are, um,
So don't even
as
check
far
your.
as you,
You don't even check your email when you're on a plane or on an unsecure network.
it's safer not to.
Wow.
Safer
Okay.
not to. I mean, using a VPN will give you a little bit of comfort, but
Because I mean, listen, I've done it countless of times. I'm talking thousands of times.
we all have.
And
We all
fortunately, I
have
haven't
that.
had a problem.
That's why it's good to have monitoring,
And which
identity monitoring.
and what do you use?
You mean to do monitoring?
Yeah, I mean, or do you use do you like McAfee or some kind of or Norton or any kind of detection service saying that
Oh,
you're
I
not?
have. Well, I've done through Cyber Scout. We had ones that I used.
And do you still use them, or do you not need them these days?
I still think you need them. I mean, I think some of the devices are getting more secure.
Okay,
Certainly, Apple is the most secure, and even that's not perfect. But you always have to be careful, and that's why it's so important to know what's going on, even to something as simple as what's called transactional monitoring, and that's where your financial institution or your credit card company notifies you anytime there's activity in your accounts, because that activity may evade bank tracking systems because it's using the same zip code that you either work, live, or shop. But you'll notice that something is wrong, even if the bank doesn't.
okay,
But I mean, if you really want to be as safe as possible, we created something in the book Swiped. We talk about what's called the three M's. How do you minimize your risk of exposure by reducing your attackable surface? How do you monitor your effectively know that you have a problem? And then if you do have a problem, how to manage the damage. And minimizing risk is everything from password protocols or using a password manager, two-factor authentication, not clicking on links or opening attachments that don't look familiar. And even if they do look familiar, being very careful, especially if you get texts, just don't click on texts because that's where you can run into trouble.
Right.
When you're creating answers to security questions, lie like a superhero because so much information is out there on social media about us, and much of that information finds its way into the answers to security questions.
I see.
If you lie like a superhero, the website or the account only cares that you're consistent, not that you're being truthful.
I see.
So that's important.
That's a great
Freezing
tip.
your credit, that's important. And then the second M, monitoring. Check your credit reports, monitor your credit scores, have transaction alerts, even check explanation of benefit statements you get from your health insurers to see if that's really you. And the final M, how do you manage the damage? A lot of people don't realize that through their insurance companies, many of their financial institutions, and now a significant percentage of employers, there are programs available to help you through identity incidents, giving you access to professional fraud experts. So check with your agent or your rep or your HR department and say, do you have a program that'll help me? Am I in it? If not, what do I need to do to get in it? Is it free or what does it cost?
Right. Yeah, I've gotten hacked a couple times. Actually, once was in New York City a couple of years ago. I'm not sure how they did it, and then actually one was just 2 months ago. All of a sudden, I started seeing some charges from this one company on two cards, including my bank card.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no idea how they got it because I don't even use those cards, to pay for gas or anything like that. So is it the RFID or did I have it in my pocket? Actually, one of them wasn't even in my pocket. So is it possible that, if I don't have it in like an aluminum foil or a little case, that they can actually get that number just by walking by me?
It is possible, but what's more likely is that your user ID and password showed up on the website Have I Been Pawned, for instance, because there has been a breach of an institution where your user ID and password was in their database.
Okay.
If you think about it, we've had just thousands upon thousands of breaches that are announced every year.
Right.
I mean, Equifax alone, you're talking about 150 million people with everything from their social security number to driver's license to personal identifiable information, mortgage companies, hospitals, educational institutions. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So I think people have to understand the fact that our information is out there
Gotcha. So,
and that we have to be mindful of that.
and you mentioned Have I Been Pawned? I've been on that site. I haven't been on lately, but so do you recommend people checking that out?
Absolutely.
So it's
And now you can also,
haveibeenpawned.com. I don't think there's an E on there. I got to check.
no, there's no O
No,
or
okay.
A. So it's Have I Been Pwned, but there's no E, no O or A if you say Have I Been Pawned. So it's PWNED.
Okay.
And you can put in your password, you can put in your email, you can put in your cell phone. And for years everybody was saying it's social security number, that's your most ubiquitous number. The truth is today your most ubiquitous number is your cell phone.
Okay.
Because nobody changes it and it's on you. It's literally attached to your appendage practically. It's another arm. And everywhere you go, people don't think twice about giving out their cell phone number.
Right. Should they be giving out a burner number?
Would be better if they did. Would be better also to have burner email too.
Okay. Because I know there are apps and sites that will actually give you a different phone number that will actually redirect to your number.
Yes. Google Voice for one. So yeah.
Okay. That's a good idea. And my last question for you, do you put a piece of tape over the camera on your laptop?
Well, actually, I have a sliding cover.
Gotcha.
But you should definitely, I mean, if it's good enough for Mark Zuckerberg, it's good enough for the rest of us. But either a little post-it or a piece of tape over the camera. There was a scandal a few years ago where there was a Russian website that had the activities of 77,000 households worldwide that the hackers had gotten into, and they were basically transmitting images to this one website. You could go on and see what everyone. It's like the movie Sliver.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
you could go on and see what everybody was doing, and again, you don't want to be the star of your own reality show.
I'm with you. That's why I do have a piece of tape right here that I put on my lens right when I finish my interviews.
Absolutely.
So, well, Adam, I can't thank you enough for coming on today, sharing your tips and tricks, so people can find you at your on your podcast, which is What the Hack with Adam Levin, or you can get his book Swiped. And where else can people find you? Are you on social media?
I'm on social media, but we also have a website, adamlevin.com, where we have lots of articles and we have show notes on all of the different episodes of the podcast. And so, uh, and I'm Adam underscore K underscore Levin.
That's a tough one to hack.
Yeah. So, but then again, living in a world where anybody can hack anything if they're good, that's the problem.
Right. Well, Adam, thank you again for taking the time, and I guess we'll see you out on the web sometime.
Absolutely. On the Wild West web, as we say. And Johnny, thank you so much for inviting me. I truly appreciate it. It was fun.
It was great. Thank you.